So now we getting it Tactical Brigade up in here, boys. So we've already done 3 undefeated orc lists, boy. And I see in the chat right here going off, guys. You guys got to tell I'm keeping up with it. So we have Mr. Mark Morrow's Tactical Brigade. So we're getting some flavors of Tactical Brigade. So the next two, the last 2 lists we're going to be covering are both Tactical Brigades. I want to keep things entertaining and exciting by showing off the fact that people are having success without even using the new detachment, because a lot of the conception right now is that the new detachment's kind of carrying, and maybe the new data sheets are hard carrying. In this case, we can see that people are doing a great job with both, and having some of them or having none of them. And in this case, again, we can see he has some of them, not carrying his whole list as all for Mr. Mark Morrow. So Mr. Mark Morrow, let me see right here. Let's take a look. So he's running Tactics Brigade. He got first place at the Warpstorm. Right here, this is actually using the WTC scoring system of differentials. So a little bit different to us. That means he was using WTC terrain, which does change a couple things up here and there, but we try to keep in mind as we go through. But what I will say is that's what makes it more understanding that he didn't have Gaz on this list, for example. One thing pointed out to me by even my own Discord and my own table at home is Gaz doesn't hide necessarily well on that kind of terrain in the mid table. He kind of gets shot up a little. So, it is what it is. So nonetheless, Mr. Mark ran a Beast Boss followed by 3 Big Mechs with shock attack guns. One of them had Mech Captain, the other one had Gob Boomer. So that's interesting, right? Instead of having a slow low character, Gob Boomer, he actually gave it to a unit that typically, or a unit character that typically you would think would give it to themselves, but in some matchups he doesn't need to give the order to himself. So it's good foresight to understand that, hey, I can throw this to someone else, not every time will I need it. Then we have 3 war bosses, one as the warlord. We have the 10-man Snagga Boy unit, followed by a 5-man unit of Storm Boys, and here we have 6 trucks on this list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, make sure I didn't put 7 on there, but it is 6 trucks. Yeah, and I double checked because I was like, more boy. So we had 5 trucks earlier, and now we're going 6 trucks. Crazy to see that, but not in the way that it's unexpected, just that it's like, oh, it's legit. Everybody's definitely teching into trucks. Some are excited, some hate it. Then we have 2 units of Breaker Boys. Yeah, one of them was actually using the Knuckle Busters. Yeah, Knuckle Busters up in here. And then both of them had the Boss Snob with a rocket pistol and a hammer. The second Breaker Boy unit didn't have the Knuckle Busters. Everyone just had the hammers, and then one had the tank hammer. We have a Burner Boy unit. He was using the Spanner, was using custom Mega Blaster. A 10-man unit of Flash Gits, followed by 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen, a max size unit of Ludas. Both Spanners had the custom Mega Blasters. And then we have a 5-man unit of Knobs with Power Claws, followed by a individual unit of Tank Busters with their rockets, and the leader did have actually a tank hammer. So something to point out here again is the fact that people are bringing Ludas. So a lot of the time people were assuming that Ludas are just not having a place anymore because tank busters are so potent, but in reality they're ranged, they're a little bit cheaper, make them just versatile as well. The fact that they already have innate rerolls, people are still finding good value from them. Very, very happy to see Mark actually perform so well with Ludas, because a lot of people were like, oh man, all I got is Ludas. Can I do this? Absolutely you can, and he showed him. So of course you have Tank Busters getting a shock attack gun, the Ludas are getting a shock attack gun, and then the Flash Gits are getting the Big Mech shock attack gun for the Mech Captain shock attack gun for the reroll hit. So I like to see that. Another thing here is the Breaker Boy units each get a War Boss, and the Knob gets a War Boss too. And a lot of these guys are getting their own trucks because the characters are killing each one of these killy units. But Burner Boys, for example, can get in a truck and support someone in that case. But that's also why he paid for so many trucks, because since these guys are 7-man units, when they get leaders incorporated them, it means that they have less options for who can SWAT team with them. A lot of the times, that's why we're seeing Burner Boys being brought into play. They end up being just cheap enough that they can fit in there and not break the bank like another 5-man unit of Flash Gets ends up doing. So you're going to see Burner Boys a lot of the time just kind of teched in for that reason. Love to see him, Mr. Mark Morrow. And like I said, Beast Boss still finding his way on all these lists because he's so proficient that he can pop sustain in this detachment as well. And he works so well outside of the wall. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. So let's go into Mark Morrow's path to victory. So we have his first game where he goes into the Grey Knights. This is the Warpbane Task Force. So this detachment is way easier for us to handle as orcs as a whole because they don't get to reactively move away from us or jump back into deep strike with the stratagem, which means once we're ready to close the distance, we can. And we have access to tank busters. Huge difference in this kind of matchup. So we have Castle and Crow, 2 Grandmaster Dread Knights, a Strike Marine, followed by 2 Inceptor units, 3 Dread Knights, a big brick of Purifier squads, a 5-man unit Purifier squads, and then a Castellan, a Clades Assassin. So a lot of the time here, like I said, they're trying to get the initiative on you, whether it's dropping characters close to you or Castle and Crow dropping down and shooting you to bits. These Dread Knights are going to have to focus on your trucks. They get totally whiff, which sucks for them. They can't really reliably pop these many trucks that quickly. And then once it's go time, Argit's going to, be able to disembark and destroy them. The one thing I will say is those, WTC maps do somewhat make it harder to hide in a lot of cases, especially if they do pop your truck. Now you're just kind of in the open. The other thing that's pretty potent as well when you're going into Grey Knights and they have so many Dread Knights is that they can overwatch you so horrifically when you're playing with something like Breaker Boys, Knob Boys, just basic boys, for example. They overwatch you with flamers, and these guys get to re-roll if they're in their own shadow, which means overwatch is so disgusting on any of these units, and that's something Breaker Boys are so easy to get. So those WC terrains are a little bit hard to actually hide your unit fully in once your truck even gets popped, or if you're going to go charge them. So good positioning matters a lot in this. And they have the ability to pop trucks from just the fact that they re-roll. So there is a chance they can whiff, but a lot of the time one Dread Knight does pop a truck has so many re-rolls built into it. And you have like pure file support to probably even shoot your infantry after that. Not to mention that Ludas become less proficient here because so much 2-up armor saves. And when you're using the Breaker Boys, again, the fact that this whole army is at a 3-up armor save, they can pop armor or contempt, means you could get super unlucky with Breaker Boys and not even pop a Dread Knight. Nonetheless, our boy did pull this game out. And it was a close game as he ended up getting 11 points. So in WTC, it would be 10-10 would be a tie. So that means he won by 1 point, which would be about a 10-point differential in the game. Great freaking job there, Mr. Mark, because you had a lot of good tools into what the meta would be, but this is one of those weird specific matchups where it's like, ooh, I wish I had more tank busters and maybe even beast bosses, because beast bosses, they're not subject to being so devastated by Overwatch. Yes, you can lose 5, 6 of your snagger boys going in, but all in all, really just that beast boss needs to go off with some leftover dudes, slip some more damage through, or someone threw a grenade at it, or a bomb squigs got into it, or you chipped it down. Unlike a Breaker Boy unit, where if they lose 4 Breaker Boys, that unit's kind of gone and it's over with. Not to mention, like I said before, Breaker Boys really want you to be using them on the wall, which is kind of hard on timing to line up on something like Grey Knights. So that's a hard first game to get into. So shout out to Mr. Mark on that one, making it work. My boy was fighting uphill battle here. He's like, I don't care, man, bring them looters. Awesome. So he goes game 2. He goes into Black Templars. So we have Chaplain Gamardis, High Marshal Helbricht, Judiciar, Lieutenant, and Emperor's Champion. So you're seeing so many Judiciar guys in the game, just so many Judiciar, Sight First, stuff like that. That's why shooting combined arms matters so much. Bomb squigs, throwing grenades, chipping these guys down, overwatching, firing lanes, stuff like that, because it's the best way we just kind of straight up deal with these guys if you're not playing Warhorror and just fighting on death and trading with them. You have a unit of Soul Intercessors, followed by a Primaris Crusader squad, 2 of those Primaris Crusader squads. A 2 Impulsors, followed by 2 5-man units of jump packs, and 2 Invader ATVs, 2 units of Sword Brethren. So he has 4 missiles here, and then just a couple kind of quite effective actually skirmishing kind of units. Why they're effective is, one, this guy, the Invader, gets Maltas, which is pretty cool. Their weird toughness, I think it's tough 5 or 6, I think it's 5, but they have like 7 wounds, so they don't really like fall over to just a simple Storm Boy unit necessarily. They can, but they can't reliably do it. Very character heavy, and you have to be quite cagey here because these guys can put the volume and straight damage through between Sword Brethren and the Primaris Crusader squads of just bodies to really jack you up as an orc player. A lot of the time, we would have tools to go into these Primaris Crusader squads with like 10-man units of knobs, but in this case, you only have that 1 5-man units of lobs. A lot of the time, the Ludas are going to play a huge difference in this. Once the enemy gets confident and they end up putting one of these 20-man units of Crusaders on one of the objectives, objectives, that's where like the looters can end up going off and picking up half that unit and bringing the damage too if they're not rocking the feel no pains. So love to see that. Not an easy game again by Mr. Mark, because in this one he ended up getting a 12-point win. So he's like slowly working up to a higher score just with all these tough matchups. So I love to see it, dude. I respectable paths to victory and tough paths to victory are what we're here for, right? That's what orcs love to see. So then into his third game, which you could already see right now. His third game was the guy who got second place. So my guy's just getting strong matchups the whole time. So into his third game, we can see another Deathwatch. So Deathwatch making an appearance again. And yeah, orcs taking orcs to LVO. Whoa, that's what I'm talking about, boy. So we have the Captain in Gravis armor. Again, remember he has damage reduction, quite respectable when he's leading a unit. We have Lieutenant with combi weapons, a Tech Marine, and then a Watchmaster, which kind of their version of like a. We have an Intercessor squad followed by a Deathwatch veteran brick. Love to see that. So these guys have the frag cannon. Those were cool back in my day. And then the Xeno Phase Blade and a couple power weapons. So a little respectable for like a battle line unit. Pretty expensive though for a battle line unit. 200 points for just like 10 Marines essentially. We have jump pack intercessor squads, 2 5-mans, pretty cool. And then we have an Astraeus. So I've never had the pleasure of playing into one of these guys, but that seems super KG and pretty cool. We have a Deathwatch Terminator Brick squad, and then Indominator Kill Team, followed by a Stern Guard Veteran squad. So I just want to come back to this funny Astraeus. So a lot of the time people would think that when you bring this, it's kind of cheeky and you're not really doing good. But we've shown here in the channel before that something even like a Stampa can end up doing really well, like 4-1 at GT. It's very rare, right, that a pilot can pull that off. But there are some cheeky gits can pull that stuff off. And in this case, he was about that life. So he was like, oh, I'm going to do it. It's fine. And so I'll pull that up on screen for you here so that we can laugh at this data sheet and find it pretty awesome. So here's the Astraeus. It is 12 wound, a T12 with 24 wounds with a 2-up armor save and seeks leadership. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more attacks made with its twin macro accelerator cannon this phase until the start of your next turn. While this enemy is on battlefield, that enemy unit is suppressed. So you take -1 to hit roll. So he shoots someone and they take -1 to hit. As a boatload of guns, as he has he can pick 2 plasma incinerators, twin bolters or a las cannon, and then some heavy stubbers, followed by his just twin macro cannon. All he has is adaptive tactics from what I can see here, so he could be selected to choose any of these, active for your army, I guess, so you can change his tactics. Other than that, he's just a big old thick brick of killing stuff, and I know that the detachments are already quite killy. So caught me off guard that he was on the list, but my boy was making it work and he was doing it. So you also hear a lot of whispers around the meta right now of these guys kind of just kicking buck, like Deathwatch having so much killing potential. So we have to see it. So, and I liked his name, Seals Are Us. So great job by you, Mr. Aiden. But Mark Morrow pulled that out with just straight damage. So in my opinion, it was one of those things where it's like, I just happen to have great profiles into beating the crap out of you. Between shock attack guns and breaker boys and flash gits, it's just enough stuff to go into a lot of these units and a lot of trucks. When you're playing for something like that big Astraeus, he's looking for something effective to kill, like efficient to kill for the points, and trucks are just not where it's at. Big Stern Guard unit is just another big 10-man unit of stuff. Something that the flash gits is really looking to pick up, either when they get out of the truck, they just delete that unit, or flash gits are looking to delete or just utterly damage and handicap any of those 2 wound basic Marine body units, which there are several on this list. And hopefully Mark Morrow just took advantage of that and just used Overwatch and ate some of those units, because he ended up getting a 13-point win on that one against a highly respectable opponent. So great job there, buddy, Mr. Mark. And then we move on to his 4th game. So this is where he went big, ended up going into the Chaos Demons Legions of Access. So again, we're seeing the Slanesh creepy boys making their way up around here. So we have the corded Epotite. I don't know what that is. Sorry, I can't read. I've never seen that really put in the list yet. 2 Keepers of Secrets, the Maskell Slanesh, and then the Chariot. Okay, there's a Chariot with the False Majesty. So we have 1 Demonette unit followed by Nurglings, Beast of Nurgle, and then 2 Fiends, a Seeker, and then 2 Soul Grinders. So Soul Grinders are super under appreciated, and it's one of those things that I wonder, hey, maybe he does want the shooting support. Like I've said, if you're all one phase, then you can get manipulated by people with good movement. That being said, Demonettes, Fiends, a lot of them are really fundamental to this list because the biggest strength it has is its speed and the fact that you can pretty much bleed wounds off one of your focus down units into just some Demonettes and then just really continue momentum into enemies. So I like to see it. I will think Nurglings will end up being on a list. Not sure about a beast of Nurgle, but Nurglings do end up on the list to infiltrate and kind of make up that space. Soul Grinders, though, I'm not sure about that tech piece. Nonetheless, I just wanted to say, if you're an Orc player going to an event, be aware of the Legions of Access Slanesh. Have plans and tools effective for them and get familiar with their rules, as they're just a great pain if you don't know what they're doing and they get the initiative you. Nonetheless, Mr. Mark Morrow was dogging them with a 20-point victory there, having, like I said, Ludas for just mass damage 2 into those fiends or into those demonettes is fantastic. Having Breaker Boys to run into those big demonettes, pretty awesome for you when it's go time. You can mess them up. And Flash gets absolutely deal with fiends, whether it's completely demolish them on Overwatch or you just jump out of a truck and smash them up. Not to mention that the Soul Grinders can shoot, but they don't shoot that well and proficiently to constantly pop a truck. So I would even be a little aggressive with my trucks, knowing that they can really only pop one reliably. They do have a little bit of Overwatch, so like your Stormboy unit might get picked up and such. Actually, he didn't have a Stormboy unit in regards to anybody generally, but he didn't have Stormboy. Oh, he did have one. Sorry, one Stormboy unit. That's all you really have to keep out for their shooting. And they do have good damage when you do get close at distance because they have a big claw and they have a big sword. So they're respectable in that way. I'm not trying to dog a Slanesh Soul Grinders because they're dope, but Mark Morrow just had so many good tools into the detachment. I mean, you had a Beast Boss also that could run in there and dev one of those big monsters and Soul Grinders. So this is just well-written list on them all over by Mark. Having volume, having great anti-demons, anti-vehicles, some dev wounds thrown in there. I like it. It's showing he has the tools just enough to deal with a lot of these different matchups. And then last, is his last? Let me see. Yeah. Then we go into his last game, which was into the Gene Stealer cult. So the meta is just healthy, boys, because we're seeing Gene Stealers all about here. We've seen Deathwatch. We've seen so many different like detachments that weren't so popular even like a couple of months ago. So we have 3 Abominants, followed by 2 Biophages, a Patriarch, and then 2 Sanctum. We have a 10-man unit of Acolyte with pistols, 1 unit of 5-mans with pistols, a 5-man unit of Hand Flamers, 3 big units of Aberrants, followed by a 10-man unit of Metamorphs, 3 fat 5-man bricks of, I guess they're not fat, but they seem kind of fat, of Pure Strains, 2 Achilles Ridge Runner unit, individual Ridge Runner, and then a Goliath truck. So these guys always want to go first and try to jail you and push you back, create layers so that as you kill them, they constantly just make more and more screens and take more and more space. But like I've said before, orcs simply have really great tools into that. And when you look at Mark's list, he has a lot of good tools into that. Like I've said before, he's winning a lot of these guys on 2s. He has multi-damage. He has shooting and punching. These Snaggle Boys can get to strength 6. Flash gets can get to strength 7 as well. Well, so can Snaggle Boys, I guess. Any of knobs with power claws if he has to deal with anything. A lot of the time you want to shoot the aberrants because they have fight on death, I believe, and their character can get up. So a lot of the time you want to shoot them, and then when their character gets up, you run in and punch their character like stay down, get, and then that feels a lot better than him getting back up after a fight, punch, and still being there the following turn. Hyper aggression is a big deal. When they come to meet you with their scouting, infiltrating, Gene Stealers, that's where you're happy that you have a little bit of shooting with burner boys to come out, not get full commitments in, still move your trucks around, and then just get out, disembark, wall, and then run them over. Don't give them ground, and keep up the game. If you play too cagey and overthink it, then they just start to just take over the board, and then as you're killing them, then they still keep scoring. So a lot of times Gene Stealers just be full aggro, and you do have to respect that they can kill you, but you have to take that chance and let the dice be the dice. So that being said, Mark pulled that out with a 14-point win into the Gene Stealers. That was the guy that got 3rd place. So this dude was already on a roll. He scored well, as awesome. So Mark, very respectable showing with the Tactics Brigade. Nice combined arms detachment and forces. Really interesting version of the Trukk Spam. And all in all, be proud of that undefeated for the Tactics Brigade, boy, because the Tactics Brigade were out and stunting this weekend. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!